All right. That is a wrap. Stage 2, the 48-hour chrono stage, is finally over, and it is time for the Dakar Rally to get started. Well, kind of, again. So we're going to be talking about today's stage number 3 that these guys are getting ready to line up for. Right now, it is 6:24 in the evening here on the Pacific Coast. That means it is time for the first bike to leave the bivouac. So we'll talk a little bit about the timing of this stage, but, well, I regret to inform you guys, we're going to have a little bit of not racing commuting going on today. So longer stage, you guys know, a 1,000-kilometer monster that was the 48-hour chrono stage put everybody to the test. So super quick, to me, that is really just testing the mettle of the bikes. That is a survival stage. I don't think that is a racing stage. If you're lucky enough to make up time in that 48-hour chrono and capitalize on that, Daniel Sanders picking up another stage win. That's 2 now, on his way to set records. That, I believe, of record holder in one rally holding 9. We've got some people asking about that. I'll check in with that. Brian, if you're watching, drop it down below, please, in the comments. So very interesting to see how this is already shaping up, but with that chrono stage being right at the front of the rally and really just testing the bikes and trying to weed out, I think that is just the survival stage. I don't think there is any kind of racing that can happen in that, especially when you see some of the stuff that happened where you've got guys that now ran their clock 30 plus hours on a stage time because they had spent the night in the middle of the desert and didn't get to that base, didn't get to that rest zone to be able to stop their race clock. So unfortunate in that, but you know, like we said previously, a lot of the people that are at the Dakar Rally are really there to finish the Dakar Rally. That is their race. That is what they're interested in. That is what they want to do. So today, like I said, is going to be the first stage where these guys get to go do some commuting. Let's talk a little bit about it. I'll put the graphic up so you guys can follow along. Starting up at the top right, you're going to see it is road section A. That is the commute to the starting line. 144 kilometers, going to be a tick over 80 miles for them just to get to the start of racing for this one. Then they're going to have a selective section, special stage. That is where the clock runs. You're going to be looking at about 327 kilometers, roughly about 180 miles for these guys running. And then on the tail end of that, I don't know. I don't want to say to add insult to injury, but you're going to add 121 kilometers of commute just to get back to the bivouac or just to get to the next bivouac. So we're going to be starting in Bisha. All of the teams in the Motorhome World Championships starting to get ready, trying to remember how to pack everything. They've been there for a week now in the same bivouac, which is pretty unheard of as far as previous editions of the Dakar. It was usually one and done, and it's time to go to the next bivouac. This time around, it was not like that. So they got some work to do. Starting off in Bisha, and then it looks like we're going to Al-Hanakaya. So little ways away. Total stage distance these guys are going to be running is 792 kilometers. Again, this is for the bikes. Maybe a slight deviation for the vehicles, but looks like 2 fuel stops. They've got a transfer in, transfer out. First fuel is going to be halfway into the stage, right around kilometer 120. Then they're looking at 327 for their next fuel on that one. So they got to be able to make 246 kilometers on their first one when they leave the bivouac. They got to have that kind of range just to get to that first fuel. And then from there, they're going to need about another 207 kilometers before they can grab fuel at the finish. Then they got to do 321 kilometers just to get to the bivouac. On the road, shouldn't be an issue. It's sand and terrain like that chews up your gas mileage. Speaking of terrain, what do we got going on here? Right across the top, fuel range was down at the bottom if you guys see that on the graphic. We're going to the top. We're looking at 0% asphalt, 68% dirt track, 6% sand, 0% dunes, and 26% stone track. Sounds like these guys are getting ready to do the San Felipe 250 minus 70 miles of whoops. Just saying. So I would expect to see some really fast times. And as I was kind of alluding to a little bit earlier, the survival stage is done. Now we're into the racing stages. I think this is going to be a prime example. This is where we're going to get to see some speed out of these guys. The guys that survived the stage, the chrono stage, now are going to get to open the bikes up. Really, we should see a lot of higher speeds, I'm thinking, out of this just because the terrain has varied. I don't see any dunes, which is typical to slow riders down, slow even riders, cars, whatever it is. It does a great job of slowing things down. No dunes predicted or seen on this map. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape, and we should see some pretty good times. Skylar House within striking distance, picking up that second place on the chrono stage. That is one heck of a thing to be able to accomplish, especially with so many hours. Daniel Sanders again picking up another one. The entire Honda team occupying the top 10 spots for that stage. We haven't talked overall results because stage 1, okay, stage 2, this huge chrono. Stage 3, now we got some racing. So we're going to talk overall results once we're done with stage 3. And that way we kind of get an answer. And I guess that's the end of the first quarter, right? We're going 12 stages for this year's Dakar, the 2025 edition. And remember, it's about 7,700 kilometers that these guys are going to be running. So there is a ton of mileage to go. We're just 25%. After this stage, we're going to be about 25% done. Not necessarily in kilometers, though. There are some very long stages still ahead, even though this was the monster stage number 2. So with that being said, guys, what do you think? What are your predictions? Who do you think is going to come out on top on this stage? Daniel Sanders is going to pick up another moto win. Are we going to see somebody in the cars? Unfortunately, Carlos Sainz dropping out of the rally. Unfortunately, having to retire. Seth Quintero putting on a show. He is one of the most winningest drivers in the vehicle category. But I say that because he did that in the Red Bull Junior team, and he took home, I believe it was all but 2 stage wins at the previous Dakar before he stepped up to the T1 Plus category. So we'll fact check that a little bit. We'll make sure we got our numbers right, but I know that he's put some impressive podiums together, and, well, they don't just hand you the keys to a T1 Plus vehicle unless you know what you're doing. So Seth Quintero knows what he's doing. With that being said, guys, we're going to keep this one short. Dinner time's been a long day. We'll talk vehicle results as well for stage number 2. We got to do that as well. Haven't forgotten about that video. We'll be doing that here shortly as well. But with that being said, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride.